Commander Hannah Park stood at the observation window, her breath fogging the glass. The massive alien ship hung in space, blocking the view of the moon. It was shaped like a giant crystal, with sharp edges that caught the sunlight and scattered it in rainbows across the darkness of space. 6 smaller ships, also made of crystal-like material, surrounded it in perfect formation. "I've never seen anything like it," she whispered to herself. The Earth Defense Force station was on high alert. Red lights flashed silently along the corridors, and soldiers rushed to their positions. Hannah remained still, studying the alien vessels. They had appeared just hours ago, slipping into Earth's orbit without triggering any of their detection systems. Lieutenant Kim appeared at her side, his uniform crisp despite the chaos around them. "Commander, they're broadcasting a message. They want to talk to our leaders." Hannah nodded, still watching the ships. "What language?" "Perfect English, Commander. They seem to have studied us for some time." The door behind them slid open with a soft hiss. General Ta walked in, his face grim. He was an older man with silver hair and a reputation for staying calm in crisis. "Commander Park," he said, his voice steady, "you're with me. The aliens have requested a face-to-face meeting. We're heading to the orbital diplomatic station." Hannah turned, surprised. "Me, sir? I'm not trained in diplomacy." "You're the best tactical mind we have. I need someone who can read between the lines." General Tai checked his watch. "We launch in 15 minutes." The journey to the orbital diplomatic station was tense. The small shuttle carried General Ta, Hannah, and 3 security officers. No one spoke as they approached the newly built station, a neutral ground constructed specifically for potential first contact scenarios. Through the window, Hannah could see a small vessel break away from the alien fleet and head toward the station. It moved with impossible grace, leaving no exhaust trail. "What do we know about them?" she asked. General Ta handed her a tablet. "They call themselves the Keldar, part of something called the Galactic Confederation. That's all they've shared so far." The station docking bay was empty when they arrived, the air still and cold. They waited in the conference room, a simple space with a round table and chairs. The walls were glass, offering a view of Earth below and the alien fleet above. "Here they come," Lieutenant Kim said, pointing to a door on the opposite side. The door slid open, and 3 aliens entered. Hannah had to force herself not to gasp. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with bodies covered in scales that shifted color slightly as they moved. Their heads were elongated with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They walked with fluid grace despite their size. The largest stepped forward. "I am General Dai of the Galactic Confederation. We apologize for our sudden arrival." His voice was deep and clear, with only a slight accent. Hannah wondered how they had mastered human language so perfectly. General Ta stood. "I am General Ta of the United Earth Defense Force. This is Commander Park and Lieutenant Kim." The alien turned his 4 eyes to Hannah, studying her. She felt as if he was looking through her rather than at her. "Please sit," General Daz said, taking the seat himself. The other 2 aliens remained standing. "We have much to discuss and little time." Once they were seated, the alien wasted no time. "Your species has 2 standard cycles, what you would call years, to declare neutrality in our conflict with the Hegemony Alliance. Failure to comply will result in protective measures." The room fell silent. Hannah noted the careful phrasing. Protective measures rather than consequences or attack. General Tad leaned forward. "We know nothing of your conflict or this Hegemony Alliance. Why should Earth declare anything?" "Because your world sits at a critical junction point between our territories," General Day explained. "We have been at war with the Hegemony for over 300 of your years. Many worlds have been destroyed. And neutrality protects us?" Hannah asked, speaking for the first time. General Day turned his attention to her. "Correct, Commander. Neutrality means neither side may establish military presence in your system. It preserves the balance. What guarantee do we have that this neutrality will be respected? General Tai asked. The Confederation honors its agreements, General Daz said. We are not barbarians like the hegemony. The meeting continued for 2 hours. The aliens provided little concrete information about themselves or the war, focusing instead on the neutrality agreement they wanted Earth to sign. When they finally departed, General Tai turned to Hannah. What do you think? They're hiding something, she said immediately. They're too eager for this agreement. Back on Earth, the United Nations Security Council gathered for an emergency session. Representatives from every major nation watched recordings of the meeting with General Da. Hannah stood at the back of the room, observing. They want us to remain neutral in a war we know nothing about, the representative from Japan said. How can we make such a decision? We need more information. Agreed the representative from Brazil. What happens if we refuse? The Secretary General turned to Hannah. Commander Park, you met them face to face. What's your assessment? Hannah stepped forward. I believe they're telling the truth about the war, but not about their reasons for wanting our neutrality. Earth has something they want, or something they fear. What do you suggest? Asked the U.S. representative. I should serve as liaison, Hannah said. Learn more about both sides in this conflict before we commit to anything. A week later, Hannah found herself living aboard the Keldar command ship. She was given quarters and limited access to their information systems. General Dai appointed himself as her primary contact. Your world is unique, he told her during their third meeting. They stood in what he called the observation dome, a room with walls that showed the space around them, as if they were standing in vacuum. Earth rotated slowly below them. We exist in a delicate balance. Neutrality preserves that balance. You keep saying that, Hannah noted. But what makes Earth so important to this balance? We're technologically far behind you. Location, Commander Park. Your system sits at the intersection of 3 spatial currents. Ships can travel faster when following these currents. Whoever controls your system can move troops and supplies quickly across a vast region. It made sense, but Hannah felt there was more to it. Something in General Daz's 4 pupil eyes made her question what neutrality truly meant. When he looked at Earth, she didn't see the respect of one equal power for another. She saw calculation. Later, in her quarters, Hannah reviewed what she had learned. The Keldar had provided information about their war with the Hegemony Alliance, details of battles, territory exchanges, political developments, but it all felt carefully selected, like a story crafted to lead her to certain conclusions. She looked out her window at Earth. From this distance, it looked peaceful, blue oceans, swirling white clouds, green and brown landmasses. No sign of the billions of humans going about their lives, unaware that alien powers were deciding their fate. What aren't you telling me, General Da? She whispered to herself. As if in answer, her computer terminal chimed. A message appeared on the screen. Not all among the Keldar agree with our leadership. If you seek truth, look for data on the Tellurian Neutrality Agreement. A friend. Hannah stared at the message until it disappeared, automatically deleting itself. Someone on the ship was reaching out to her. Someone who thought she needed to know more. She made her decision. Whatever game the Keldar were playing, she would learn its rules. Earth's future might depend on it. Hannah sat alone in the small room the Keldar had given her for research. The computer terminal glowed with a soft blue light. General Da had granted her access to study galactic law and the history of neutrality agreements. He called it a gesture of good faith. Know our ways, and you will see we mean your people no harm, he had told her. But the message about the Tellurians bothered her. She had searched for information about them, but found only brief mentions. According to official records, they were a peaceful species who had signed a neutrality agreement 50 years ago. Nothing more. The door slid open behind her. Hannah quickly switched her screen to display a harmless document about trade regulations. Commander Park. She turned to see a Keldar standing in the doorway. This one was smaller than General Da, with scales so pale they were almost white. Most Keldar had deep blue or green scales. "Yes," she asked, trying to hide her surprise. "I am Jun, 3rd Communications Officer." The Keldar glanced nervously down the hall before stepping inside. The door closed automatically behind him. "Can I help you?" Hannah asked, watching him carefully. Jun approached her terminal and glanced at the screen. "These reports are incomplete," he said quietly. "Ask about the Tellurians." Hannah felt her heart beat faster. "What about them?" Jun lowered his voice even more. "Not here. Too many ears." He touched a button on his wrist device, and the terminal screen flickered. "I granted you access to sealed records. Use it tonight when the ship cycles to rest mode. Fewer observers." Before she could ask more questions, Jun turned and left. The entire interaction had lasted less than a minute. Hannah waited until the ship's lighting dimmed, signaling night cycle. Most Keldar would be resting now. She returned to the terminal and found a new folder in her files, labeled simply T. Inside were hundreds of documents about the Tellurians. Reports, communications, strategic plans. She read quickly, her stomach tightening with each new revelation. The Tellurians were a species from a planet similar to Earth. They had been approached 8 years ago with the same offer as humanity: neutrality in the war between the Confederation and the hegemony. They had agreed. 3 years later, the Confederation had detected hegemony infiltration on their world. For the Tellurians' protection, the Confederation had evacuated major population centers to temporary shelters. That was 5 years ago. Current status reports showed their home world had been converted to a major Confederation military base. The Tellurians now lived on space stations and colony worlds, working as laborers for the Confederation war effort. "This can't be right," Hannah whispered to herself. Her terminal beeped. A message appeared. "Lunar Base Alpha. Tomorrow. 200 Earth time. Come alone. A friend." Hannah frowned. Lunar Base Alpha was an abandoned research station on the far side of the moon. Who would want to meet her there? It could be a trap, but it could also be answers. The next day, she requested permission to return to Earth for a routine report. General Dai approved without question. "Our trust builds slowly, Commander," he said as she boarded the shuttle. "But it grows stronger each day." His words made her skin crawl. Instead of heading directly to Earth, her pilot, a trusted member of the Defense Force, altered course to the far side of the moon. Lunar Base Alpha appeared below them, a collection of domes and antennas covered in moon dust. "I'll wait here," the pilot said as she prepared to exit. "Emergency signal if you need extraction." Hannah nodded, checking the oxygen level in her suit. "If I'm not back in 1 hour, leave without me and report to General Ta." The base was dark and cold. Hannah moved carefully through the abandoned corridors, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. She reached the main control room and waited. "Commander Park," a voice said from the shadows. "Thank you for coming." A figure stepped forward. It wasn't Keldar. This alien was shorter, with smooth skin that seemed to shimmer slightly. 2 large eyes dominated a rounded face. "Who are you?" Hannah asked, her hand moving to her sidearm. "My name is Saul. I represent the Hegemony Alliance." Hannah kept her distance. "How did you get here?" "Earth space is being monitored." Saul smiled, or at least Hannah thought it was a smile. "The Confederation is not as all-seeing as they pretend. We have our ways." "Why did you want to meet?" "To warn you." Saul moved to a dusty console and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing maps of various star systems. "Your neutrality means eventual annexation." The Tellurians declared neutrality. 3 cycles later, they were evacuated for protection. Their world is now a Confederation military base. Hannah nodded. "I found those records." "Then you know what awaits Earth." "Why should I trust the hegemony instead?" Hannah asked. "You're at war with them. You have every reason to turn us against them." Saul's expression became serious. We don't ask for your alliance, Commander. Only that you understand the choice before you. Neutrality is a lie. The Confederation conquers through protection. We conquer through open warfare. At least we are honest about our intentions. The meeting lasted another 30 minutes. Sol provided data about other worlds that had fallen to Confederation protection programs. The pattern was always the same: neutrality, then a security crisis, then evacuation, then occupation. When Hannah returned to Earth, she went directly to Defense Minister Han's office. He was a stern man with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She told him everything: the Tellurians, her meeting with Sol, the pattern of Confederation conquest. "And what of this Jun?" Minister Han asked. "Can we trust him?" "I don't know," Hannah admitted, "but the records he gave me match what the hegemony representative showed me." Minister Han walked to the window. From his office, he could see the Keldar ships orbiting Earth, visible even in daylight as bright points of light. "If both sides are lying to us, we need options," he said finally. "I'll speak with the Security Council. We need to begin preparations." Quietly. Over the next few weeks, Hannah maintained her role as liaison with the Confederation. She attended meetings, asked carefully worded questions, and gave nothing away. All the while, Earth's governments worked in secret, developing plans and technologies that might help them when the Keldar revealed their true intentions. Jun contacted her again, this time in the ship's garden, a large room filled with plants from various worlds. "They're watching you more closely now," he warned, pretending to examine a blue flower. "Be careful what you search for." "Why are you helping me?" Hannah asked. "You're risking everything." Jun's scales shifted color slightly, darkening around the edges. Hannah had learned this was a sign of deep emotion among the Keldar. "My people were once given the same choice," Jun confessed. "We were a free species with our own worlds and culture. The Confederation came offering protection from the hegemony. Now we serve the Confederation absolutely. We are not partners. We are tools." "You're saying the Keldar are conquered too?" Jun nodded. "The oldest among us remember freedom. The rest know only service." He touched a leaf gently. "This plant is from my home world. It's all that remains. The rest was converted for war production." Hannah looked at him with new understanding. "Help me prevent the same happening to Earth." "I will try," Jun said. "But understand, General Dai answers to powers beyond even him. The Confederation will not allow Earth to remain truly neutral. They fear your species too much." "Fear us? We're centuries behind your technology." Jun's 4 eyes focused on her. "Technology is not what they fear. It's your adaptability, your creativity. Most species follow predictable patterns. Humans do not." Her conversation was interrupted by an announcement calling all officers to their stations. Jun left quickly, but not before slipping Hannah a small data device. That night, she reviewed its contents: internal communications between General Dai and Confederation High Command. They discussed Earth's integration timeline and resistance mitigation strategies. The neutrality agreement was just the first step. The document ended with a stark assessment: human population centers must be dispersed before they realize their collective potential. Recommendation: accelerate timeline. Proceed to Phase 2 within 1 standard cycle. Hannah stared at these words for a long time. The neutrality deadline was approaching rapidly, just 3 months away. According to this document, the Confederation wouldn't even wait that long before moving to Phase 2, whatever that meant. She needed to warn Earth, and she needed to learn more from Jun about what Phase 2 would bring. The game of deception had become deadly serious. Hannah knew that everything, her world, her species, depended on outmaneuvering an enemy that had conquered countless worlds before them. She tucked the data device into a hidden pocket and headed for the shuttle bay. It was time to report to Minister Han again. Time was running out. The underground facility beneath Mount Sorak buzzed with activity. 100 meters of solid rock hid it from the prying eyes of Confederation satellites. Here, Earth's best scientists and engineers worked day and night on Project SHIELD, humanity's secret defense against alien threats. Hana walked through the main laboratory with Minister Han and General Tai. Engineer Lee, a small woman with short hair and intense eyes, waited for them at a large display table. The satellites are undetectable using their scanning technology, Engineer Lee explained to them. We've incorporated the radiation signature from their own engines to mask our network. She touched the display, and a model of Earth appeared, surrounded by hundreds of tiny dots, satellites being built and launched in secret. How many are operational? General Tai asked. 87 so far, Lee replied. We need at least 200 for complete coverage. Minister Han frowned. And the Keldar have noticed nothing. Not yet, Hana said. Their scans focus on traditional energy signatures, nuclear, antimatter, plasma. Our satellites use a different approach. Lee nodded. We're harnessing Earth's natural magnetic field. It's always been there, so they don't see it as unusual. The three continued their tour of the facility. In one room, soldiers trained with new weapons designed to work against Keldar armor. In another, scientists studied samples of alien technology secretly collected from the Confederation ships. How long until the system is fully operational? Minister Han asked. Lee checked her tablet. 4 weeks, if we maintain current production. We may not have 4 weeks, Hana warned. I've seen their internal documents. They're already planning the next phase of their operation. Above ground, Earth's governments maintained a facade of diplomatic compliance. Official meetings with Confederation representatives continued. Earth's leaders discussed the neutrality agreement and asked innocent questions about galactic politics. Meanwhile, the secret work continued. 3 days later, alarms sounded in the defense headquarters. A Confederation scout ship had broken from the main fleet and entered low Earth orbit without permission. It moved slowly over major cities, its sensors active. Hana was called back to the Confederation command ship immediately. General Da met her in his private chamber. Your people seem upset, he said, his scales shifting to a darker blue. You sent a ship into our atmosphere without permission. Hana replied calmly. That violates the diplomatic protocols we established. General Day made a dismissive gesture with his long fingers. Routine security measures. Your species' paranoia is unwarranted. Paranoia. You're scanning our cities without consent. We detected unusual energy fluctuations. We needed to ensure no hegemony agents had infiltrated your world. His 4 eyes fixed on her. The security of Earth is our primary concern. Hana knew he was lying, but she maintained her diplomatic mask. In the future, please inform us before conducting such operations. It creates unnecessary tension. General Dai agreed, but Hana saw the insincerity in his posture. As she left his chamber, she sent a coded message to Earth. They suspect something. Accelerate timetable. The next day brought worse news. Technician Su, a specialist in surveillance technology, discovered Confederation monitoring devices in 37 major cities worldwide. They were small, almost invisible, attached to public buildings and communication towers. They've been watching us for weeks, Su reported to the Security Council. He held up one of the devices, a small silver disc no larger than a coin. They can see and hear everything within a 100-meter radius. Minister Han looked grim. Remove them immediately. Use the excuse of routine maintenance. If we remove them all at once, they'll know we've discovered them, Hana warned. Then we'll feed them false information, General Tai suggested. Let them see what we want them to see. For the next week, Earth's government staged elaborate shows near the monitoring devices, fake meetings discussing peaceful compliance, scientists working on harmless agricultural projects, civilians going about normal lives. Meanwhile, the real work continued in shielded facilities. 10 days later, General Dad returned to Earth with 3 additional warships. The meeting took place at the United Nations headquarters, with representatives from all major nations present. We detect unusual energy signatures consistent with weapons development, General Day announced without preamble. This violates neutrality standards. Minister Han kept his face neutral. We have increased our regular power production to meet growing civilian needs. Nothing more. Our scans show otherwise, General Dai insisted. If these activities continue, we will be forced to take preventative action. The threat hung in the air. Hannah watched the faces of Earth's leaders. They showed appropriate concern and confusion, but she knew they were all thinking the same thing. We need more time. We will investigate these energy signatures, Minister Han promised. Perhaps there is a natural explanation. General Dai seemed unsatisfied, but he accepted the response for now. As the meeting ended, he approached Hannah privately. Commander Park, we have valued your role as liaison, but I wonder where your true loyalties lie. Hannah met his gaze steadily. My loyalty is to peace, General, just as yours is. His scales darkened slightly. Indeed, peace through proper order. That night, Hannah met Jun secretly in an abandoned warehouse. Earth's security forces had swept it for monitoring devices and created a signal-blocking perimeter. They're preparing for Phase 2, Jun confirmed. The High Command has authorized General Dai to begin the protection protocol within 15 days. What exactly does that mean? Hannah asked. They will claim to detect hegemony weapons on your planet. This will justify the evacuation of your major cities to safe locations in space. Jun's voice was flat. It has begun on 17 other worlds before yours. Hannah paced the empty space. We need more time. Our defense system isn't ready. There may be another option, Jun said. He activated a small device that projected a diagram of Earth. Your planet has something unique, a magnetic field with unusual properties. I've been studying it secretly. What about it? If properly amplified, it could disrupt both Confederation and hegemony navigation systems. Jun's scales lightened with excitement. Their ships wouldn't be able to maintain stable orbits or target weapons accurately. Hannah stared at the projection. How would we amplify it? Your satellite network could be modified. Instead of just hiding from our scans, they could actively project the magnetic field outward. The next day, Hannah brought Jun's idea to Engineer Lee. Lee spent hours reviewing the data, then looked up with wide eyes. This could work. We'd need to reconfigure the satellites, but it's possible. How long? Hannah asked. A week, maybe less. Hannah nodded. Make it happen. While Earth's scientists worked on the new defense system, Hannah returned to her liaison duties with new purpose. She needed to buy time and learn more about the Confederation's true intentions. During a tour of the Confederation's medical bay, she noticed something strange. Large quantities of atmospheric processing equipment being prepared. What's this for? She asked the medical officer casually. Standard terraforming equipment, he replied. For hostile environments. Hannah recalled something Jun had mentioned. The Keldar preferred planets with higher levels of certain gases that were toxic to humans. A terrible suspicion formed in her mind. At the next Security Council meeting, Hannah shared her discovery. They want something from Earth they're not telling us about, she reported. I believe they intend to alter our atmosphere to suit their biology. That's why they need to evacuate us first. Minister Han looked grim. How long until our defense system is operational? 4 days, Lee replied. But we need to test it first. We may not have that luxury, General Ta warned. Our intelligence suggests the Confederation fleet is preparing for some kind of operation. Hannah thought quickly. We need a distraction, something to delay them without raising suspicion. That evening, Earth's ambassadors proposed a series of cultural exchange events to strengthen relations with the Confederation. General Dai seemed suspicious but agreed. For the next 3 days, the Confederation representatives were kept busy with concerts, art exhibitions, and diplomatic dinners. Behind the scenes, Engineer Lee and her team worked frantically to complete the modified satellite network. It's ready, Lee announced finally. but without testing, I can't guarantee it will work as expected. Minister Han looked to Hana. Your assessment, Commander. Hana thought of Jun's warning, of the Tellurians, of all the worlds that had fallen to the Confederation's false promises of protection. Activate it, she said, but keep it on standby. We'll only use it if they make the first move. 2 days later, that move came. The Confederation fleet began to shift position, surrounding Earth in a tighter formation. General Day requested an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders. Hana knew what he would say before he said it. The time for pretense was over. The message came at midnight. A single word on Hana's secure communicator. Now, she slipped out of her quarters at the defense headquarters and made her way through the quiet streets of Seoul. The city never truly slept, but at this hour, the crowds had thinned. Above, the crystalline shapes of the Confederation ships glowed against the night sky. Hana reached the old subway station and descended. At the bottom, 2 guards in civilian clothes nodded to her. They led her through a service tunnel to a hidden elevator. The elevator dropped for nearly a minute before stopping. The doors opened to reveal a large underground complex, one of many secret facilities built since the aliens arrived. Jun waited for her in a secure room. His pale scales looked almost ghostly under the harsh lights. His hand shook slightly as he placed a small device on the table between them. I had to disable 3 security protocols to get this, he said quietly. If they discover what I've done, my life is forfeit. Hana nodded. I understand the risk you're taking. What was so urgent? Jun activated the device. A holographic display appeared above the table, a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed with different colors. The war is nearly over, Jun explained, his voice heavy. Not because either side is winning, but because both our civilizations have been decimated by the Void Collective. The Void Collective. Hana frowned. You've never mentioned them before. Jun touched the display. Dozens of star systems turned black. They emerged from the galactic core 20 years ago. Neither the Confederation nor the hegemony understood what they were facing until it was too late. The display zoomed in to show one of the darkened systems. Hana saw planets surrounded by strange, shifting clouds of darkness. What am I looking at? The collective is not a species like yours or mine, Jun explained. They are a form of energy that consumes all matter they touch. They spread from world to world, devouring everything. Hana watched as the simulation showed the darkness spreading across a planet's surface, leaving nothing behind. Why keep this secret? Why not tell us? Jun's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of shame in Keldar body language. Because Earth is special. The collective cannot tolerate certain radiation patterns. Your planet naturally emits these patterns. Hana stared at him as understanding dawned. We're being used as bait, she realized. Keep us neutral, keep us unprepared, then use Earth as a barrier when the collective arrives. Jun lowered his head. General Dad believes sacrifice is necessary. The Confederation has lost over 40% of its territory. The hegemony has lost more. Both sides are desperate. So this war between you is still real, Jun said, but it has become secondary to survival against the collective. Both sides want Earth as a shield, but neither will share the truth with you. Hana stood and paced the room. How long have we got? The collective's advanced ships have already entered your solar system. They move slowly, testing for resistance. They will reach Earth within 30 days. And the Confederation plans to use us as a sacrifice. Hana's voice was hard. To buy time for themselves. Jun's scales darkened with emotion. General Da believes it is the logical choice. One world to save hundreds. He looked up at her. My people once thought the same way. Before we learned the cost. We sacrificed allied worlds, only to find the collective grew stronger with each one it consumed. How did you get this information? I serve in communications. I've been collecting fragments, intercepting messages between General Dai and High Command. Jun touched the device again, showing more data. The evacuation plan was never meant to save humans. It was designed to place you in positions where you would draw the collective away from Confederation core worlds. Hannah studied the battle plans, horror growing with each new detail she absorbed. The plans showed human populations being moved to specific stations and colonies, all positioned to intercept the collective's predicted path. "I need to warn Earth's leaders," she said. Jun nodded. "I will return to the ship before I'm missed. There's one more thing you should know." He pulled up a final image, a scan of Earth itself. "Your magnetic defense system, it may be more effective than you realize. The collective is vulnerable to the same frequencies you've been developing to disrupt our navigation. So we can fight them." Perhaps. Jun's voice held little hope. No one has successfully defeated them yet, but Earth might have a chance, if you're prepared. 3 hours later, Hannah stood before the Emergency Security Council. Minister Han, General Tai, and representatives from 12 major nations listened as she revealed everything Jun had shown her. "The Void Collective," Minister Han repeated, "a third faction that devours worlds. And both the Confederation and Hegemony want to use us as shields against them." "Yes, sir." Hannah displayed the data Jun had provided. "According to these projections, advanced elements of the collective will reach Earth within 30 days. The main force follows a month later." General Tai studied the battle plans, and these show how they plan to position our people after the evacuation. "As sacrificial distractions," Hannah confirmed, "while the Confederation fleet retreats to safety." The room fell silent as Earth's leaders absorbed this terrible truth. "Both sides are desperate, which makes them dangerous," Hannah continued. "But this third faction is the real enemy. The Void Collective will consume Earth completely if we don't prepare." "Can we trust this information?" asked the representative from India. "Your Keldar contact could be deceiving you for his own purposes." "The data matches patterns we've already observed," Hannah replied, "and explains why both the Confederation and Hegemony are so interested in our world specifically." Minister Han stood, his decision made. "I'm ordering full deployment of Earth's hidden defenses. If we're to be sacrificed, we'll make it costly for everyone involved." "Sir," Engineer Lee spoke up from the back of the room, "the magnetic defense system may be more useful than we thought. According to this data, the collective is vulnerable to the same frequencies we're generating." Hope flickered across the room for the first time. "How quickly can we adapt the system to target these collective entities?" Minister Han asked. "A week, maybe less," Lee replied. "We'll need to boost the power output significantly." "Do it," Minister Han ordered, "and accelerate production of the defense satellites. I want complete global coverage before this collective arrives." As the meeting continued, Hannah slipped away to contact June. He needed to know Earth was preparing to fight. Not just the Confederation, but the true enemy. She found a secure communication terminal and sent a coded message. Minutes passed with no response. She tried again. Finally, a message appeared. "Jun has been arrested, suspected of treason. Confederation fleet preparing for immediate action. You have hours, not days." Hannah raced back to the meeting room. "We're out of time," she announced. "Jun has been caught. The Confederation knows we know." General Tai immediately activated the military alert system. "All defense forces to battle stations. This is not a drill." "The magnetic shield isn't ready," Engineer Lee protested. "Deploy what we have," Minister Han ordered, "and prepare for Confederation action." Across the planet, hidden facilities hummed to life. Disguised defense platforms emerged from underground bunkers and ocean depths. Military units moved into position around major cities. In orbit, the Confederation ships began to move. Their perfect formation shifted as they took up attack positions. Hannah watched from the command center as humanity prepared for a fight it had never wanted against an enemy that had hidden its true face, and another enemy that might be even worse. "Send a message to General Da," she told the communications officer. "Tell him we know about the Void Collective. Tell him we're willing to cooperate against the real threat. but not as sacrifices. The response came minutes later. Surrender your defenses and accept evacuation. This is your only warning. Minister Han looked to Hana. Your assessment, Commander. Hana thought of Jun, who had risked everything to warn them. She thought of the Tellurians and other species who had trusted the Confederation and lost everything. They won't back down, she said. And neither should we. Minister Han nodded grimly. Activate all defense systems. May God help us all. The morning sky was empty. Hana stood on the roof of the defense headquarters, staring upward in disbelief. Where 7 massive Confederation ships had hung in orbit just yesterday, there was nothing but blue sky and scattered clouds. They're gone, General Ta said beside her. All of them. Our satellites confirm they left the system at high speed around 300 hours. Without a word, Hana said, her voice tight. Without warning. They returned to the command center, where Minister Han was already reviewing reports from around the world. The sudden departure of the alien fleet had triggered panic in some regions, celebration in others. Why would they leave? Engineer Lee asked, looking up from her workstation. They were about to attack us. Hana moved to the main display screen. Show me the outer system scan, she ordered. The screen changed to display the planets beyond Earth. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then Hana noticed faint signals at the edge of the solar system. Magnify that area, she said, pointing. The image zoomed in. Several objects were moving slowly toward Earth from beyond Neptune. What are they? Minister Han asked. Not Confederation or hegemony, Hana replied. Their movement pattern is different, I think. She paused, a chill running down her spine. I think they're Void Collective scouts. The room fell silent. That's why the Confederation left, General Tai realized. They knew the collective was coming, and they abandoned us to face it alone. Just as Jun warned, Hana said. They planned to use us as a barrier all along. Engineer Lee studied the incoming signals. They're moving slowly. Estimated arrival at Earth orbit in 48 hours. Minister Han straightened his shoulders. Then we have 48 hours to prepare. What's the status of our defense network? We have 214 satellites in position, Lee reported. Not the full 300 we planned, but enough for basic coverage. And the magnetic amplifiers. Operational, but untested against the collective. Minister Han turned to Hana. Commander Park, you know more about these entities than anyone else here. You're in command of our defense operations. Hana felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. We need to evacuate civilian populations from coastal areas, she began. The collective will likely target regions with the highest energy outputs first. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Cities around the world implemented emergency protocols. Military forces moved into defensive positions. The satellite network was fine-tuned to project Earth's natural radiation patterns outward as a shield. And the dark shapes of the Void Collective grew closer. They didn't look like ships. They were more like clouds of shifting darkness, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Earth's scientists struggled to understand what they were seeing. They don't register as solid matter, one physicist reported. More like organized energy with a collective consciousness. When the first scout entities reached the moon, they paused. Earth watched and waited. In the command center, Hana stood ready. Screens showed the approaching darkness. The entire planet held its breath. They're accelerating, a technician announced, moving toward Earth at increasing speed. Hana's voice was steady. Activate the shield network. Engineer Lee keyed in the command sequence. All around the world, the hidden satellites came fully online. Earth's atmosphere briefly shimmered as thousands of satellites connected, projecting the planet's natural radiation outward in an amplified wave. The effect was invisible to human eyes, but the sensors showed it clearly, a ripple of energy expanding into space. When it reached the approaching collective scouts, they slowed, then altered course. They didn't expect resistance. Engineer Lee observed, studying the readings. They're regrouping. The collective entities spread out, forming a loose ring around the planet. Then, as if following some silent command, they attacked from multiple vectors. They're testing our defenses, General Ta noted, probing for weaknesses. The shield held initially, the radiation pattern forcing the dark entities back. But soon they adapted, finding gaps in the coverage where fewer satellites were deployed. They're breaking through in the southern Pacific. A technician called out. Grid Section 47. Redirect power from northern sectors, Hannah ordered, and prepare the ground-based amplifiers. For 18 hours, the battle continued. The collective would probe, retreat, then attack again with new tactics. Earth's defenses held, but barely. They're learning, Hannah realized. Each attack is more sophisticated than the last. Minister Han looked grim. How long can we maintain the shield? The satellites are overheating, Engineer Lee reported. We're losing them one by one. Hannah made a quick decision. Shut down the Eastern Hemisphere grid. Focus all power on the western sectors where they're concentrating their attacks. That leaves half the planet exposed, General Ta protested. But we can strengthen the remaining shields, Hannah explained. And the collective seems to follow a hive-like coordination. They focus together. If we make one target irresistible, they might ignore the rest temporarily. The gamble worked. The collective entities swarmed toward the strengthened Western Hemisphere shields, ignoring the apparently vulnerable eastern regions. This gave Earth's engineers time to repair and restart the eastern grid. When the collective realized the trap and turned back, they faced renewed resistance. We're not fighting conventionally, Hannah explained to Minister Han. We're using guerrilla tactics, appearing weak where we're strong, strong where we're weak. It's confusing their hive mind approach. By the third day, the tide had turned. Several collective scouts had been destroyed, their energy signatures dissipating into space when caught between overlapping radiation fields. The rest had withdrawn to a higher orbit, seemingly reassessing their approach. That's when Earth's long-range sensors detected new arrivals, the Confederation fleet returning. They're requesting communication, the communications officer announced. Minister Han looked to Hannah. Your call, Commander. Hannah nodded. Put them through, but maintain full defensive alert. General De's face appeared on the main screen. For once, his composed demeanor showed cracks. His scales were paler than usual, and his four eyes kept shifting between Hannah and the tactical displays visible behind her. Commander Park, he began, we see you've encountered the collective. You left us to die, Hannah accused, her voice hard. You knew they were coming, and you fled. General De's scales darkened slightly. We miscalculated. Your species' capabilities exceeded our models. We believed Earth would fall within hours, so you abandoned us to gather tactical data on how quickly we'd be destroyed, Hannah concluded. The Keldar general didn't deny it. The war against the collective requires difficult choices, and sacrificing allies is your first choice, apparently. A new figure moved into view beside General Da. Hannah was shocked to see Jun, his pale scales marked with dark lines, punishment scars. Commander Park, Jun said, the Confederation fleet observed your defense of Earth. They're surprised. Surprised we didn't die on schedule, Hannah asked bitterly. Jun's expression remained neutral, but Hannah could read the subtle shift in his posture. Surprised you developed effective countermeasures that have eluded both the Confederation and hegemony for years. General Day cleared his throat. We request permission to enter orbit and assist with the ongoing defense operations. Hannah exchanged glances with Minister Han and General Ta. Both nodded slightly. Permission denied, Hannah replied. Earth's orbit remains restricted space until new terms are established. Commander, the collective will return in greater numbers, General Da warned. You need our help. Do we? Hannah gestured to the tactical displays showing the retreating collective scouts. It seems to me that you need our help more than we need yours." Silence stretched between them. Finally, General Dez's posture changed, a subtle shift that Jun had once told Hannah indicated submission in Keldar body language. "What terms do you propose?" the alien general asked. "We need new terms," Hannah stated firmly. "Earth isn't neutral or subservient. We're independent allies. If you still want our help." The negotiations took 3 days. Jun, released from his punishment status, served as a cultural translator between the species. Earth demanded and received guarantees of independence, access to Confederation technology, and seats on the War Council planning the fight against the Collective. When the Collective returned a week later with a larger force, they found Earth defended by both human ingenuity and Confederation firepower. The battle was fierce, but ended in retreat for the dark entities. On the final day of General Dez's visit to Earth, Hannah escorted him to his shuttle. The Keldar had been subdued throughout his stay, his normal arrogance replaced by something like respect. "Your species continues to surprise us," he admitted as they walked. "No other world has successfully repelled a collective scouting force without assistance. Perhaps you should stop underestimating species different from your own," Hannah suggested. General Dez's scales shifted colors slightly. "Perhaps." As he boarded his shuttle, Hannah's enhanced communication device, a gift from Jun, picked up General Dez's transmission to Confederation High Command. "I warned you about humans," the general reported. "They survive where others perish. And now we need them far more than they need us." Hannah smiled to herself as she watched the shuttle rise toward the waiting fleet. Earth had faced extinction and emerged stronger. Humanity had proven itself not as pawns to be sacrificed, but as equals to be respected. And somewhere out in the darkness between stars, the Void Collective was learning a painful lesson about their newest adversary. Humans don't follow the expected patterns. They create new ones.